Hello, welcome back. Things have taken a shocking turn for Joni Lamb, leaving fans in disbelief. After years of building a legacy in Christian broadcasting and presenting the image of a strong, faith-driven family, everything has suddenly changed. Known for her unwavering presence on Daystar and her dedication to ministry, Joni has now found herself at the center of a deeply personal crisis. The public had always seen her and her husband as an unbreakable team, but behind closed doors, tensions had been building, and now the truth is out. Joni Lamb's life has taken an unexpected and heartbreaking turn as she recently broke her silence, revealing the painful reality of what led to this moment. What really happened behind the scenes, and how will this impact her future? Stay tuned as we uncover the shocking truth about Joni Lamb's life-altering revelation. The whispers started long before the public had any clue that trouble was brewing in the marriage of Joni Lamb and Doug Weiss. At first, the rumors were subtle, nothing more than passing comments from insiders who noticed small changes in their dynamic. But as time went on, the speculation grew louder, fueled by their increasingly strained public appearances and the unusual silence from both of them on social media. For many, the marriage had seemed like a fairy tale. After the passing of Marcus Lamb, Joni had found love, again with Doug Weiss, a well-known Christian counselor. Their relationship was presented as a testimony of healing, faith, and new beginnings. But behind the scenes, cracks had begun to form. People started noticing that Doug was appearing less and less alongside Joni at events where he would normally be by her side. Even when they did make public appearances together, their chemistry felt different in avoided glance, a tight-lipped smile, a noticeable distance between them that hadn't been there before. At first, fans brushed it off. After all, every marriage has its ups and downs. But then the rumors began to take a more serious turn. Some insiders claimed that Doug was struggling with the pressures of being in the public eye. He had spent years as a respected counselor helping couples navigate difficult relationships, but stepping into the world of Christian television was something entirely different. Being married to Joni Lamb meant that his every move was scrutinized. His past was constantly under a microscope, and any mistake he made could turn into a headline. Some believed that this pressure was weighing on him heavily and that it was beginning to affect his relationship with Joni. But then came the even more shocking whispers that Doug was facing legal troubles. While nothing was confirmed, speculation swirled that there were financial issues from his past catching up with him, possibly related to his counseling practice. Some people claimed that he had been involved in legal disputes over business dealings, while others suggested that his name had come up in ongoing investigations. No one knew for sure, but the fact that these rumors were even circulating raised red flags. Was Joni aware of this before they got married? Or had she only recently discovered something that made her question everything? Another theory that gained traction was that Joni and Doug had major disagreements over the future of their ministry work. Joni had dedicated her life to growing Daystar, ensuring that Marcus's legacy continued to thrive. But some sources suggested that Doug had his own ideas about how things should be run, and that these differences had led to significant tension between them. Some even speculated that Doug had wanted a more prominent role within the network, while Joni had been hesitant to make any major changes. Could this have been a breaking point for their marriage? The public had no answers, only speculation. But with every passing week, more people began questioning what was really going on. Fans who had once believed in the strength of Joni and Doug's marriage were now filled with doubt. Was their relationship falling apart behind closed doors? Was Doug hiding something? And most importantly, how long had this been going on? As these rumors gained momentum, the silence from Joni and Doug only made things worse. Neither of them addressed the speculation directly, and that led people to believe that there was some truth to it. After all, if everything was fine, why wouldn't they just come forward and set the record straight? Instead, Their lack of response only fueled the fire, leaving the public with more questions than ever. Then, the real bombshell dropped. Reports surfaced that Joni and Doug had been living separately for some time. It wasn't clear exactly when this had started, but insiders claimed that Doug had quietly moved out of their shared home and that Joni had been focusing entirely on her ministry, avoiding any questions about her personal life. If this was true, then it meant their marriage had been in trouble for much longer than anyone had realized. Fans who had admired their love story now felt confused and betrayed. How had things gone from a picture-perfect marriage to a relationship full of distance and unanswered questions? Was this just another case of two people growing apart, or was there something much bigger happening behind the scenes? For now, the truth remained a mystery, but one thing was clear. This was no longer just a rumor. Something was happening between Joni Lamb and Doug Weiss, and it was only a matter of time before the truth came to light. When the news of Joni Lamb and Doug Weiss's divorce became public, the Christian community was left in shock. Just months before, they had presented the image of a strong and faithful couple, a testament to love after loss. But now, that carefully built image had crumbled, leaving behind unanswered questions, confusion, and heartbreak. For Joni, the divorce was more than just the end of a marriage. It was the collapse of a future she had believed in. She had stood before millions, sharing her love story, believing that God had given her a second chance at happiness after losing Marcus Lamb. But now, she was forced to accept a painful reality. What she thought would last forever had ended far sooner than expected. In private, Joni was overwhelmed with emotions. She had spent years presenting herself as a woman of unshakable faith, but now she was facing something deeply personal in the most public way possible. Every detail of her life was scrutinized, every move she made was analyzed, and every word she spoke was met with speculation. She wanted to grieve in peace, but there was no escaping the eyes of the public. Doug, on the other hand, had his own struggles. His reputation as a marriage counselor was now under heavy criticism. How could a man who had spent decades advising couples on how to keep their relationships strong not be able to save his own marriage? The irony of the situation was not lost on the public, and Doug knew it. He had built a brand around being a relationship expert, but now his own credibility was being questioned. The reactions from those closest to them were mixed. Joni's children, who had embraced Doug as part of their family, were struggling to process what had happened. They had supported their mother's decision to remarry, believing it was a blessing after Marcus's passing. Now, they felt protective of her, wanting to shield her from the criticism and judgment that was coming from all directions. They saw how much pain she was in, and they hated that she had to go through another heartbreak under such public scrutiny. Doug's close friends were also divided. Some believed he had been unfairly judged by the public, arguing that marriages end for all kinds of reasons and that it was no one's business what had really happened between him and Joni. Others, however, felt that there was more to the story whispers of tension, of undisclosed conflicts, of secrets that had yet to be revealed. The media wasted no time dissecting the situation. Some Christian outlets took a sympathetic approach, offering prayers and words of encouragement for both Joni and Doug, framing their divorce as a sad but understandable part of life. Others were less forgiving. Headlines speculated about what had gone wrong, with some sources hinting that Joni had been blindsided by the split. Others suggested that Doug had been struggling behind the scenes for a while, with the pressure from their public life creating cracks in their relationship. Then there were the theories. Some people believed that Doug had wanted out of the marriage for months, but had stayed quiet to avoid backlash. Others suggested that Joni had discovered something she couldn't ignore, something that forced her to make the painful decision to leave. There were even rumors that the divorce had been in the works long before anyone knew about it, and that both of them had been preparing for this moment in silence. Through it all, Joni remained composed in public. She gave carefully worded statements about trusting in God's plan and focusing on her ministry. She knew that her audience was watching closely, and she didn't want to let them see how much she was struggling. But behind closed doors, she was grieving. Losing a marriage,